Welcome to the deep dive. And welcome back to our ongoing seminar series on the unconscious, part of the LEAR Super Fun Learning Hour.
Episode 13, I believe.
That's right, 13. It's amazing how much we've covered. And today we're taking, well, a really fascinating turn.
We're heading into some different territory.
We're moving into the work of Donald Stern, specifically focusing on his really important book, Unformulated Experience, From Familiar Chaos to Creative Disorder.
A foundational text in relational psychoanalysis, for sure.
Exactly. Now, if you've been following along, we've often talked about the unconscious as this place of, like, hidden desires, repressed memories, drives.
The classic view, mostly. Things pushed down, hidden away.
Right. But what if?
Yeah.
What if a lot of our experience isn't actually hidden like that? Not repressed, not even symbolized, and then forgotten?
What if it's just unformed?
Yes.
Yeah.
Unformulated. Lived, felt, acted out maybe, but never actually translated into a thought or an image or, language.
That's the core of it. That's exactly where Donald Stern takes us. And it's a pretty radical idea when you first encounter it.
It really is.
So yeah, today our mission, if you will, is to unpack this central point. Seeing the unconscious not just as that container for hidden stuff.
Repress.
Right, the repressed. But seeing it more as this expansive, unformulated field, a place where experience is kind of waiting for symbolization.
Waiting to be made into something understandable.
Precisely. And we'll explore how this completely changes the analyst's job, from just digging up the past.
The archaeologist metaphor we often use.
Exactly. To something much more active, like co-creating the conditions for something totally new to take shape.
And we have to touch on his concepts of familiar chaos and creative disorder. They sound intriguing.
Oh, they're brilliant. Really capture the therapeutic process he envisions.
Okay, let's dive in. This feels like it's going to challenge some core assumptions.
It likely will.
So let's start right there with the cornerstone. Stern's contribution. He's coming from a relational perspective, right?
Yeah.
How does that influence this core idea?
Hugely. What's really key here is how Stern directly challenges those traditional Freudian views from a relational standpoint.
Okay.
The old model often saw the unconscious as primarily a repository, like we said, a container for things that were once conscious but got pushed down painful memories, forbidden wishes, conflicts.
And the goal was retrieval. Uncover it, bring it to light.
Right. Analysis is archaeology. But Stern says, hold on, much of our experience isn't repressed in that way at all.
It's unformulated.
Yes. It exists, it's lived, it absolutely affects us, our relationships, our feelings, but it hasn't yet found a form. No perception, no thought, no image, no word attached to it.
Wow, so it's like raw data.
Yeah.
Unprocessed experience.
Kind of. Raw, unorganized, lacking defined meaning. It's felt, but not known in an explicit way.
So it's not that I can't remember why I always react a certain way in specific situations.
Not necessarily.
It might be that the why, the underlying pattern, was never actually formed into something I could consciously remember or articulate.
Precisely. Think about really early relational patterns, things learned implicitly before language, or just that vague, persistent feeling you can't quite name, but it colors everything.
That feeling you can't put your finger on.
Exactly. That's the realm of the unformulated. It isn't hidden because of defense mechanisms like repression. It simply hasn't been created yet as a mental representation, as something thinkable.
That distinction is huge. It's not hidden, it's uncreated.
It really expands our understanding. The unconscious isn't just the symbolized then repressed. There's this vast area of the not yet symbolized.
Which shifts the whole paradigm, doesn't it? If a huge chunk of our lived reality is in this pre-symbolic state.
It changes how we think about development, about pathology, and definitely about therapy.
So let's connect that to the bigger picture he paints. This idea of the unconscious as an unformulated field.
Yeah, moving away from the warehouse or container metaphor, Stern asks us to imagine it more dynamically, as an expansive, unformulated field, or even a potential space.
A potential space. I like that. What's in this field, then, if it's not just repressed memories?
It holds these pre-symbolic experiences, these undifferentiated emotions, these relational patterns that haven't been mentally represented.
So, like, the feeling tone of early interactions, the implicit rules of relating we absorbed.
Exactly that. It's the realm of what's vaguely felt, unclearly sensed, unformed. It's raw experience that's waiting waiting for structure, waiting for meaning to be made of it.
So the stuff of the unconscious, it isn't just hidden meaning that needs decoding.
No, it's often the raw material before it even becomes structured meaning. It's experience that hasn't yet been woven into a narrative or conceptual understanding.
And this moves us away from a purely intrapsychic model, right?
Yeah.
Where everything starts inside one person's head.
Definitely. It brings in the intersubjective, the relational, much more strongly. It highlights how much of our earliest, most formative experiences happen between us and others, often before we even have the sophisticated symbolic tools to fully process them internally.
We live them, but we don't necessarily think them in the way we think later thoughts.
We live them, they shape our implicit relational knowing, our bodily responses, our expectations, but they might never become neat, verbalized memories or concepts.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me, practically speaking. If the unconscious is this unformulated field, how does that change what the analyst actually does? You mentioned it's not archaeology anymore.
Right, and that's a crucial implication. Stern gives a really compelling answer. If experience isn't just hidden, but is actually unformulated.
Then the analyst can't just find it.
Exactly. The role shifts dramatically. From being primarily an uncoverer or interpreter of pre-existing meaning.
To being what? A facilitator.
A facilitator, yes, and even more actively, a co-creator.
Co-creator. Tell us more about that. How does that look in the therapy room? What does co-creating meaning actually involve?
Well, instead of focusing solely on interpreting what might be repressed from the past or giving insight into old conflicts, the main task becomes creating the conditions within the therapeutic relationship itself.
The relationship is the key.
It's central, creating conditions where the unformulated experience can actually emerge and begin to take form. The focus shifts heavily onto the interpersonal interaction right here, right now.
The here and now interaction becomes the place where this stuff gets formulated.
Precisely. It's the crucible. The analytic engagement, the way the patient and therapist interact, the feelings that arise between them, the responses, the misattunements, the repairs. That's where new experience can be created and then symbolized.
So the analyst is helping the patient build the representations, giving words or images to things that didn't have them.
That's a good way to put it. Helping them build mental representations for experiences that previously had none. It's not about the analyst having the correct interpretation locked away.
It's not the analyst saying, this feeling you can't name is actually X from your childhood.
Not necessarily, or at least not primarily. It's more about creating a responsive, engaged environment where the patient can discover and articulate their experience, perhaps for the very first time.
Like giving someone clay and tools in a safe space. And through the process of working together, a shape emerges that neither person fully predicted beforehand.
That's a wonderful analogy, yes. It's collaborative. The patient, feeling the analyst's presence, their engagement, their willingness to tolerate uncertainty, starts to develop new ways of thinking and feeling.
Transforming that vague, unformed stuff
Into something understandable, something integrated. The therapy itself becomes this incredibly creative process for both people involved.
That feels very different from just digging up the past.
It honors the past, but it's fundamentally about creating something new in the present.
Okay, this connects perfectly to those other two concepts you mentioned. Familiar chaos and creative disorder. Let's start with familiar chaos. What is that?
Familiar chaos is Stern's term for the state many people are in when they enter therapy, or just in life. They're endlessly circling in these repetitive, entrenched patterns.
Patterns of feeling, behaving, relating.
Yes, patterns that remain unarticulated, unsymbolized. These are often conflictual, painful situations, but the person can't really grasp them or understand them, even though they live them out over and over.
Stuck in a loop they can't describe.
Exactly. A loop that resists being put into words or understood conceptually.
But why familiar? That sounds awful. Why would it be familiar?
That's the key. It's familiar because it's a known state. It's a habitual pattern. Even if it's deeply uncomfortable, maybe even agonizing, it's predictable in its misery.
The devil, you know.
Kind of, yes. Patients get stuck in these states that resist symbolization. Think of someone who repeatedly gets into relationships that end in the same painful way.
But they can't articulate why or what the pattern really is.
Right. They might blame themselves vaguely or blame the other person, but the underlying dynamic, the lived experience of that pattern remains unformulated. It lacks mental representation. The chaos is known, but not understood.
So the goal then is to disrupt this familiar chaos.
Yeah.
To break the loop.
Yes. And that's where creative disorder comes in.
Okay. Creative disorder. Sounds like a paradox.
No.
Disorder is usually seen as bad, not creative.
Right. But Stern uses it very intentionally. Creative disorder represents the potential for profound fundamental change. It's a state that emerges when that familiar chaos gets disrupted.
When the old pattern breaks down.
Exactly. And that breakdown often leads to a period of, well, increased openness, fluidity, but also sometimes temporary confusion and uncertainty. Things feel less predictable, less solid.
Which can be scary.
It can be very scary. But this disorder is creative because it's what breaks down the old, rigid, unformulated patterns. It makes space. Space for entirely new forms of experience, new meanings, new ways of organizing the self to emerge.
So it's not just about stopping the old bad pattern. It's about the possibility that arises when the old pattern loosens its grip.
Precisely. It's a necessary deconstruction to allow for a new construction.
So it's not just fixing what's broken in the past sense, but genuinely enabling the creation of something novel, something that wasn't possible within the old familiar chaos.
That's the heart of it. The analyst, by providing that safe, co-creative space, helps the patient navigate this necessary period of disorder. It's through tolerating the uncertainty, staying engaged within the disruption.
That the previously unformulated stuff can finally be expressed.
Expressed, understood, maybe for the first time, and then integrated. It leads to real growth, fundamental shifts. It moves beyond just finding the roots in the past to actively creating a new future, a new way of being for the patient.
Wow. That's a really hopeful perspective on change, even though it involves going through some disorder.
It is hopeful. It suggests change isn't just about insight into the past, but about generating new experience in the present.
What a deep dive today.
Yeah.
Seriously. Donald Stern's unformulated experience. It really does offer a fresh and quite profound way to think about the unconscious.
Absolutely. His work, especially putting the unformulated right at the center of the analytic process, it's such a significant contribution, particularly within relational psychoanalysis.
It just shifts the whole landscape, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The unconscious isn't just a dusty attic of hidden things.
Exactly. It's this dynamic field, this potential space where experience is waiting for symbolization, waiting to be known.
And that completely reframes the analyst's role, not just an interpreter of things already there.
But an active, co-creative participant, someone involved in the birth of new meanings, new experiences, new capacities within the patient.
It really emphasizes that therapy isn't just about uncovering what was, is it?
No, it's equally, maybe even more so, about creating what can be right now in the relationship.
And that journey he describes, from familiar chaos, those stuck, unsymbolized loops we all can get into,
Yeah, those painful ruts.
towards creative disorder, where breaking those patterns, even if unsettling for a bit, opens up space for something genuinely new to emerge.
It offers such a powerful model for growth and transformation. It suggests that real change requires moving through uncertainty.
It really does. So for you, our listener, maybe here's a thought to sit with. How might thinking about your own experience in terms of the unformulated change things?
Yeah, those confusing feelings or maybe those repetitive patterns in relationships or work that you just can't quite pin down, can't quite articulate.
What if they aren't just things you haven't figured out yet, but things that haven't fully taken shape to be figured out? And maybe, just maybe, where might allowing a little bit of creative disorder stepping away from the familiar, even if it feels messy or uncertain for a moment, be the very thing needed?
The thing needed to open up a path to something new, something more authentic, maybe something profoundly meaningful that couldn't exist within the old constraints.
Something to mull over. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into Donald Stern's unformulated experience.
It's been a pleasure.
We look forward to exploring more complex ideas with you next time on The Deep Dive.